Super excited to be here. This is a huge flashback. I actually came here in 1991, I believe, to this hotel as a player representative at the University of Iowa with Hayden Fry. Some of you may have been around during that time, but we came in as a bunch of media scrum. We didn't have individualized and all those breakout sessions. So I'm walking in with Coach Fry. Mike Devlin was the other guy with me, and they say, hey, they never ask players any questions. Never. Coach Fry looked at me. He's like, don't worry about it. They're not going to ask you. I got the first question of the day. So I started off humming. This is my fourth year as the leadoff hitter here in the conference, 6th year back in the league. Super excited. Want to thank you to Commissioner Petiti. Last year they took us to Vegas for meetings, and that was the spot where I met my wife at the Wynn Casino, which is a whole other story. We met in Vegas, and our first date was in Chicago. So to come back to Chicago, which was the first place my wife and I ever had dinner. Excited to get back and be in the mix here. So a lot of great things have happened for us at the University of Illinois. One of the greatest things last week, Josh Whitman, our AD, who's been a huge part of not just success in football, but the University of Illinois over the last 10 years. They gave him a contract that pretty much ensures my contract aligns with his, and his is even a little bit longer. To have that blessing, to have an AD walk that walk with us on a daily basis is absolutely awesome. Been a huge part of why we've had success. In the last 2 years in the Big Ten Conference, we're number 4 behind Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State in 4 really cool categories: win percentages, Power 4 wins, home wins, and ranked wins. And I think if Illinois was in that messaging as that spot in the Big Ten Conference, a lot of people would find that hard to believe, but not for me. The walk that we walk, the players that we have here today, it's been absolutely awesome. In the last 2 years, we're 8-1 in one-score games in conference play and in bowl games, and that was largely generated by a really good player that left us, Luke Altmaier. So to bring Caton Hauser here as one of our player representatives, I wanted him to be known as the quarterback at the University of Illinois going into this season. I think he's a great representative of not just who he is, but what we represent at Illinois. I think that's why we've got him. We've had a little bit of a history going back to Russell Wilson, who was my first ever transfer quarterback, to Tommy DeVito, to Luke, and now Caton hopes to fall in that same lines. Also, 2 other players with us are 2 guys we recruited out of high school. Jaheim Clark came to us from Florida, is going into his 4th year because of the new rule coming about. We'll actually hopefully get a bonus year with him. Was a kid that was a little bit recruited, not a lot. And then Matt Bailey is a great representative, a 5th-year player. His only offer to play college football is from us at the University of Illinois. I offered him on the Sunday before signing date just because I felt he's a really good player, and I knew that if we feel few are good players, a lot of people tend to follow us. So I wanted to make sure we got him to the University of Illinois, and he's been an absolute dream. So those 3 players represent a lot about what we have at Illinois going. Just finished our 7th straight semester over a 3.0 GPA. The highest GPA in school history was this past semester. So not just doing it in the class, or not just doing it on the field, also doing it in the classroom. So I know a lot of people have different opinions about what's going on in college football. Going into my 18th year, I couldn't be more excited about where we are, not just at Illinois, but in our conference and also college football. It's literally at an all-new high by the people that are here, the buzz around this. I go back and I sit in conference meetings and I hear Tony talk. To us as a group of coaches, I remember being here as a young coach when Jim Delaney got up and would come in and talk to us. And I remember him and Joe Pa getting in arguments every time about different things. It was very comical, very enjoyable to watch. But to see the growth of this league to get to where we are now, I spent a couple of years in the SEC, was with Slive and then transitioned to Sankey. And I just think about it now, everybody's going to have, opinions, and obviously they're going to draw the Big Ten, SEC, and all that goes around about that. But to sit in the room with both of those guys, I think with Tony and the vision and experience that he has, and to be in the room where Sankey, I know he's got to protect the SEC, and they kind of want to live in 2005 forever. But I think the forward thinking of where we are in college football is an awesome thing. So couldn't be more excited about the year. Got a crossover game against Duke, ACC champ. Played them at their place last year, got a victory. So have them on our docket. Start with UAB, have a FCS in-state school with Southern Illinois Illinois, and then start Big Ten play on the road at Ohio State is going to be a tremendous challenge. Have a couple neat games. Got an Oregon game coming at home. Got a Friday night home game against Nebraska. Got a Friday game at UCLA in the Rose Bowl. So a lot of great things ahead of us. Those 12 guaranteed games, and see where it can go. So with that, I'll answer any questions that anybody has.
All right. We'll open it up for questions for Coach Bielema. On your right side, first row.
Good morning, Coach B. Erie Martin, Big Ten Student U, University of Illinois, ILL. Back-to-back seasons with the bowl victory, the success of your good friend in Brad Underwood making it to the Final Four in the spring, and, just Illinois being in their quote-unquote golden age in athletics at the moment. Do you believe that stands at the top of the list when it comes to prestiges and trying to land recruits out of high school or out of the portal?
It definitely helps. One of the first phone calls I had with Josh, he gave me Brad's number, and I talked to Brad, I think the 2 days before I took the job, and a lot part of that was obviously a conversation with Josh, but Brad just assured me how great Josh was to work with and the environment we had at Illinois. So he's been a huge asset for me as a head coach. Basketball, I think, even in the NIL world and all that's changing in college athletics, basketball is a little bit ahead of football all the time, it seems like, in that manner. So, yeah, he's been a great resource. I think the cool thing is Josh and I commonly talk about sustainable success, and anybody can have a year or two or maybe three, but you're going into year 6 to have the success we've had. Really, the 2 years we didn't go to a bowl game, we were a 5-7 team that was a player or two away from going to another one. So obviously the playoffs and the ability to get into that would take a different level. But I do think right now in this world we're in, we're able to get in on really any kid in the country. Now, how long they stay talking to us, a lot of times that's driven by, contracts and revenue share and stuff like that. But I think any kid in college football that's getting recruited now will go anywhere his chance is the best. And that's why I think Illinois is a great place for everybody.
On your left side, Coach.
Good morning, Coach. Jacob Worthing, KRUI. Illinois has established itself as a contender. What are the next steps to consistently challenge for the Big Ten championship in a tough league like this?
Well, a big point of mine is to win on the road. I went back and looked during my window over the last 5 years, and then specifically it's gotten better and better each year. But for us to win, and win at a high level and get into playoffs, you're going to have to win Big Ten games on the road. And we've been able to do that. In my first year, we knocked off Penn State. I think they were number 7 in the country in a 9 overtime game. But that was a long time ago, right? And to build a successful campaign to get 10 wins or more in a regular season, which will get you in the playoffs, I think we're going to have to win on the road. So that's a big one. I do think that, to say you contend's a great word, right? But I think championships are what people remember, right? And to get in those conversations, to do it more consistently, you got to have a lot of great things going for you. And we've got pieces of those puzzle, but we've had a game or two each year that's kind of knocked us out of the playoffs. And to get over the hump, most of those have been on the road. We've been 6-1 the last 2 years at home, so we've been doing our business there. But each year we kind of have one of those games that snaps up and gets us, and we got to avoid those games.
Second row on your right side.
Hey, Bret, Colin Wilson with the Action Network. You had one of the lowest returning snaps from the offensive line and added about 1,000 through the portal, and protection of Caden Hauser is really important with Duke and Ohio State. Is that the biggest bullet point in fall camp coming in?
Yeah, last year at this event, it was brought up how many players we had returning the offensive line, and I knew that. So during the course of the year, I made a huge commitment of time on my behalf and our personnel staff, Pat Embleton and his crew, to look at potential portal players and make sure we're going after the right people. I feel really good about that. Like you said, we don't have snaps at Illinois, but Christian Martin, my left tackle, has played a lot of football at Colorado State. Michael Metallo is our left guard who played a lot of, it was junior college football, but he's played a lot of football. We have Jake Renfro, who's started at Cincinnati and at Wisconsin, has got a lot of reps, even though it hasn't been at Illinois. Brandon Hanson is Brandon Henderson is our right guard, only returning player who's been a starter for 2 years. And then our right tackle, if it weighs out the way it is, Nate is started in the bowl game for us and played a lot of good football. So I think reps in college football are very, very important. And Caden Hauser, even though he hasn't started a game at Illinois, he did play at Michigan State, has been a really good football player for a long time at East Carolina. So I'm counting on those reps to carry into Illinois as well.
On your left side.
Stuart Mandel with The Athletic. Bret, you just said something earlier about the SEC wanting to live in 2005 forever. Can you just explain what you mean by that?
Well, I think I just made the headline, right? Well, I became a head coach in 2006, so I was going back before I was a head coach purposely. And I think what I'm saying is, like, I went to the league, I went to the SEC, and it was a completely different league, in my opinion, than the one I was in the Big Ten prior. And just with the basically the two biggest things, the biggest components are the transfer portal and revenue share, or NIL, however you want to describe it. When those two elements came into college football, the whole world changed. I mean, it's overly obvious to say that, but I think anything to predate that is just a different time in college football. It just is. And it's also really hard. I said this point to someone earlier, so back when I was in the Big Ten the first time, we were going through this renaming of our league. I think the eventual winner was the Leaders and Legends. I don't know how the hell we got there, but regardless, I remember we were in these conversations, and I was with Coach Alvarez. He was obviously our AD, and we did a comparative study over 20 years, and I believe they looked at the last 50 years up to that point. And of course, 50 years' time, Wisconsin wasn't anywhere in the mix. But in the last 20 years, when we took that data, the only other team that had won more games than Wisconsin was Ohio State. It wasn't Michigan. It wasn't Penn State. It wasn't Nebraska, who was coming in the league, obviously. But the four teams they all wanted to talk about and that they were worried about distributing evenly was Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, and Nebraska. And I'm pissed, right? Because, like, I'm at Wisconsin, and I look at 20 years, and no one's really paying attention to that, right? And Coach just said to me very plainly, said, don't worry about things you can't control. You can't change people's 50 years of history in the way they think. I also had that revelation when I recruited a young man, Yelda Verholt. He was from Denmark. And Yelda was a foreign exchange student in Ohio. I offered him a scholarship, and then he went on a tour, and I was at Arkansas, and we hadn't won anything at that point. I was in my first or second year, and he went to visit us, but then he went and visited Alabama, Florida, Ohio State, Michigan, all these premier programs, and he came to Arkansas, in my opinion, because he wasn't blinded by the 50 years that he didn't know, or the 18 years he had been alive on this earth because he had been in Denmark. Right? Like, he wasn't blinded by the things that he had been told or learned. So I just kind of take that in a way that, like, it's a different world, man. The last 3 years, like, the quarterback I have now, we would not have gotten if the world was existed 5 years ago. I know that. Neither would my left tackle, my left guard, my center, and my right tackle wouldn't be here playing for me. Right? And you go around to every team, and the rosters have changed because of those two components, the transfer rule and revenue share. It's a different world. Anything beyond that is nonsense. That's where I'm coming from.
On your left side, fourth row.
Austin Berkland, Armchair Illini. What's the biggest adjustment to going to the 3-3-5 defense, and what made that the most attractive option for your defensive coming up?
So last year, structurally, we played a 3-3-5 scheme in 90% of our snaps. So it's labeled that way. It's a different way of saying it, but this defensive scheme is uniquely different. It's a genesis of Rocky Long, who was a longtime defense coordinator, very successful, many different plays. When Bobby left UNLV, he went to San Diego State and learned it right from Coach Long, and then had installed it and built it into his Montana program. We played against it a couple years ago when we played Mississippi State in the bowl game. So there's a few teams that have run it, but it's very unique and different. And I think that the biggest factor for me is I wanted to get a way that we could play a defense that players could come in and transfer into and play easily. In addition to build something a little bit unique, I think in the Big Ten play, to prepare for a unique offense or defensive scheme in a work week is really, really hard. When I got into the league, the defense we were running, there were about 2 or 3 teams that ran it. Last year, at the end of the year, there were about 12, you could say 13 teams that ran a variation of our defense more than anything else. So we've become a really routine prep, and I want to have something a little bit more unique.
Coach, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ILL.